Metal Gear Survive.
Yeah, we're not going to spend a ton of time on this one, I don't think. Mostly because I think a lot of people out there have kind of already seen and already said what we're probably going to talk about. But
let's preface this by saying we did not waste money on this game.
We have not bought this game. Neither of us have purchased it.
When it came out, I watched it for 2 days on Twitch and YouTube and tried to just collect the general consensus, right? The general idea of how people felt about this game, and just from watching the gameplay, how I felt about this game. There are parts of it that I think look interesting. But overall, for the most part, I think this game is a huge flop.
It's clearly, I would say, based on what I've read about player base, and how sales have been doing for it, it is going to end up being a huge flop for Konami.
There was a lot of potential here. I think in general, from the get-go, they shouldn't have called it Metal Gear Survive.
Agreed.
No. Call it whatever the fuck else you want.
Desert Survival Apocalypse 2.0.
Camo guy tackles zombies shard.
Man with stick pokes zombies.
Anything would have been better than calling it Metal Gear Survive. Because calling it Metal Gear anything implies that it's going to have
an extremely deep and meaningful story, for one thing.
Right.
And it also implies that Kojima's going to be involved.
And he's not.
He's not at all.
And this is what happens when you try to make a Metal Gear game without Kojima. And I feel like from the start, that soured a lot of people's...
Right off the bat, every diehard Metal Gear Solid fan was never going, or Metal Gear fan, was never going to buy this game.
No.
In my opinion, the true diehard fans, people who really love those games, not people who were like, oh, I played Metal Gear Solid 5 and that was fun. I should pick up Metal Gear Survive.
Right.
People who have been playing it from the beginning and know...
Metal Gear Solid. If you remember...
Or even before
Shadow Moses, or if you remember the 2D games.
Right.
If you remember Guns of the Patriot, Sons of Liberty, or Snake Eater, even Guns of the Patriot, this is so away.
It is
from any other Metal Gear game. I'd say it's most similar to Phantom Pain because it's built in the same engine. It is set in the same location.
Which in and of itself is it's like they didn't even try.
Yeah, it takes place after the events of Metal Gear Solid 5's Phantom Pain. And it's just okay, so you've spent all of Phantom Pain building up this huge army and your mother base, and then you just up and leave, and you leave a bunch of soldiers behind. You just leave them there to fend for themselves in a giant hellhole that opens up in the ground.
Right.
Literally a hellhole.
Yeah, it's
there's
whatever.
Kaiju monsters.
Right.
What?
Right, it doesn't even... It's right, first of all, they add weird fantasy elements to it, which... I mean, don't get me wrong, Metal Gear Solid did have some interesting science fiction elements.
Right, it had some great... villainous characters that had some really weird powers and really weird personalities. I remember the first time I saw Vamp and was like, who the hell is this guy?
But this game just kind of takes all those really cool, unique ideas and this really interesting, if convoluted story, and just takes a huge steaming dump all over it and then washes that away with a garden hose. It does not...
They didn't even wash it away. They just kind of made a poopy puddle for you to just step all in and roll around in if you want.
And, so this game has got a ton of different issues. For one thing, the gameplay seems tedious.
You run around with a big stick for the first 5 hours of the game just poking zombies in the face.
Right.
They're not even... They don't even have a face. It's just a crystal shard sticking out of their lower jaw.
Yeah. And the thing is that I think the idea behind it, it's basically H1Z1.
H1Z1, yeah.
Yeah, and that's kind of what they were going for, and they had the opportunity to make a fun H1Z1 game. The engine that they built this game on is great. It's a great engine. But instead, they decided to make a boring, tedious mess. And to top it all off, I think you know the great. To top it all off, what did they do?
They locked it behind microtransactions.
They locked it behind microtransactions.
Not everything, okay? For the most part, yes, you can get through the game without spending any money. But let's say you want to make a second character. You have to buy that character slot. Let's say you want to have more than 4 loadouts ready to go. Of the 8 available loadout slots, half of them are locked behind a paywall.
And it's still a $40 game. I mean, a $40 game built on top of another game, and then you're going to add pretty ridiculous microtransactions, if you ask me. And then use the title Metal Gear. Like, what are you doing? What were you thinking?
I mean, this game has multiplayer. They kind of sold that from the jump. Like, the first thing we saw of this game was the multiplayer beta that came out, right? And it's basically zombies from Call of Duty meets Metal Gear. Like, all you do is kill wave after wave of zombies and see how long you can survive. But the single player version of this is like completely different and is begging to have multiplayer elements to it. You get to create your own home base with different facilities and all of this different like water purification places and weapon benches and all this cool stuff that you go around collecting resources to craft and build and like do all this stuff, but you don't get to share that with anybody. So all the hard work you put in your single player game, nobody can come see it. Nobody can assist you with any of the tedious tasks that you have to do, which is the main reason Monster Hunter World has been so great, right? So to me, you're telling me like I'm going to put all this work and you don't even have to. There's really no reason to, except to maybe get to in-game where you're running around, again, by yourself. No one likes in-game that you can't share with other people.
Yeah, right. And I think on top of that, to make it worse, the worst part is that's right. They don't even have a co-op multiplayer where you can have your friends join you and see your base and go out and help each other collect resources. But then another opportunity that they completely missed on is having like base-to-base battles where you're in competition with somebody else in your region and you have to fight them and you can send zombies to them or attack them or whatever. There's so many cool things that have potential here in this game that you could have done. And instead, you decided to just make it all a boring, dull, single-player, tedious mess. Everyone knows that multiplayer games ultimately are becoming more and more the future.
It's like they wanted to create a game as a service, but didn't give you the service.
Right. Yes. It's like they built a service game and then never had the multiplayer service part of it.
Right.
You know, it's like just a
I mean, I don't understand how it didn't come up in development at any point to say like, hey, look, Destiny was successful. No one's got anything to play now. Like, everyone's jumped ship to Monster Hunter. Oh, you get to do tedious, grindy tasks with other people, so it's not so tedious. Like, when me and you were playing Monster Hunter the other day, and you just had to go around collecting, like, clues to find the Rathian.
Yeah.
I was running around in there with you. I couldn't find any of the clues, but I'd help you fight any big monster that came along. You know, I was running around just picking up resources, and that felt more fun than doing it by myself just because I knew that at least somebody was running around in the world with me.
Well, like, I don't think Monster Hunter's perfect either, and I just think that
it's way better than this.
It's just so much better, right? Like, I think Monster Hunter has lots of things that it could have improved upon, just having a better online system in general. But at least it has one. At least it has something where you can do the same things alone as you can with friends. And that's what this game should have been. You should have been able to do the same things alone as you can do with friends. If you're going to make an online game in today's world, that's what people want. They want to be able to play the same game on single player as they do with their friends. And then again, there was a huge PvP potential opportunity that would have been really cool and that would have had a really interesting take on it, and they didn't do anything. They didn't do any of that. They just made a crappy horde mode.
And you have to be connected to online servers to play this game.
So you can't even play it. single player. I mean, you can. I mean,
There's
they force
very
you to.
there's very little that you could play, even single player, without connecting to the online servers. Like, they couldn't do early reviews of this game because the servers weren't up and running. Why are you going to give me this single player campaign that I can't play with other people if I have to be connected online to even access it? Like, it just doesn't make sense to me. Like,
It seems like Konami really shot themselves in the foot in this one, but
this, I think, will hurt their reputation more than it will hurt them financially.
right. And I think that, yeah, exactly. And I think that their reputation was already hurting after the whole Kojima thing, and everybody's looking at Death Stranding and going,
when the fuck is this coming out?
This looks crazy. Like, this looks like it could be amazing.
Yeah.
And I agree. Like, when is this coming out? When are we going to see some gameplay of this? Because this looks wild. And then Konami's like, oh, yeah, you think Death Stranding looks wild? Check out Metal Gear Survive. Let's just completely blow our own brains out. I mean, I don't get it. I don't understand what Konami's thinking was behind this. I don't understand why. If you're going to put Metal Gear in the name, I guess just assume it's a cash grab. Like, they're like,
Right.
You know what? We've got this whole map we've already built. Let's just make it into H1Z1 with none of the good things about H1Z1 even. Like,
No one plays H1Z1
no one
by
plays
themselves.
H1Z1 anymore, but right, exactly. No one would play it by themselves if,
You need
if
a
it
squad.
was good.
It's so like bewildering to me.
Yeah.
Like, why? Like, I don't know. I do want to know, like, how people would have reacted if they didn't call this Metal Gear. You know, if they had just, instead of even keeping the whole Metal Gear story to it, if they had coined it as something else.
You could have kept, like, basically 90% of the Metal Gear story. But just change names and change characters and change a few, some details.
That's what I mean, is don't sell it as being in the world of Metal Gear. Right. Sell it as, like, here's a new world, here's a new adventure. It just seems to kind of look like Afghanistan.
You just say, in the not-too-distant future in Afghanistan.
Right.
You could do real-world Afghanistan and make this work, basically. It's a portal to hell opened and zombies were created.
And you send soldiers out to deal with them.
Right.
I don't know.
You did it, Bo.
I feel like they should have... Like, I think it would have been received better, but they wanted to sell it as a Metal Gear game because they knew people would buy a Metal Gear game.
I think that's exactly it. I think that this is a cash grab from Konami because I don't
so
really
frustrating
know.
Mentally.
Like, I don't know what else it could be. You didn't put the time and effort into making a really flushed out great game. I mean, you didn't. There was the Kojima touch was clearly missing from this game. Not that I don't think Kojima would ever make a game like this. Anyways,
no, he wouldn't. He definitely wouldn't hide half the game behind a paywall.
Exactly. So it's
and I think before we wrap all this up, we need to go touch on the little hidden secret message that was left in a cutscene by one of the people working on the games. And YongYea has a great video kind of explaining a lot of this. I'll put the link in the show notes. But basically, there's like this sheet with all these people's names, and it's where you fill your name out, or your character name. It's like early on, like right after the tutorial, you see this cutscene where it shows a clipboard, right? It's got all the sheets of all the names. Now, if you take the first letter of the last name, because it's all like call signs, right? So it's like an adjective and a noun, right? So if you take the second word of everybody's name, the first letter of it, it says KJP forever is like the middle bunch of it, right? And KJP is obviously Kojima Productions. Forever. So somebody there was obviously like, okay, we stand with Kojima. I'm still on this staff. Like,
he's loyal to Kojima, obviously.
Right. And then below that it said Bastard Yota and Cunning Yuji. And so that's the game director, Yota Suzumizaki, and the producer, Yuji Korikato. And they threw those little like adjectives in there just to like give them a little jab. But then above the KJP forever, it lists the acronyms are MG, and it spells like on the side you can see they're listed as is killed in action. So like the Metal it's kind of this guy's way of saying like Metal Gear is killed in action, KJP forever, and that the letter was written or that the clue was left for director Yoda and producer Yuichi. So it seems like even the staff wasn't excited about that, and
Right, there was obviously people in the staff who were upset with how
they
Kojima was treated and how they developed this game. And I don't blame them. They ultimately produced what seems to be a garbage game.